Good afternoon. My name is John Kawola, and I'm from BMF, and I'm joined here by Peter Ho. Thanks for joining us. I know everybody's got jobs to do, and so this is hopefully an opportunity for you to learn more about our technology and how it might be able to help you. I'm going to spend the first maybe 10 minutes just talking about who we are at BMF, at Boston Microfabrication, and just talk overall about the applications that some of our customers have and how they're using our technology. And hopefully we recognize there's probably people from many different walks of life in terms of medical device or electronics or optics or academia. But hopefully some things you see here today will be some inspiration for you. A couple things on logistics. There is a Q&A box that if you have questions, please type them in there, and at the end we'll read them off and answer as many as we can live verbally. And then, as I said, I'll go through some initial discussion about BMF, and then Peter will introduce our new product, the D1025, and why we're excited about it, why it's different, why we think it opens up a lot more capability for our customers. So why don't I just start talking about BMF? BMF was founded back in 2017, and there was really the premise for the company was that there were a couple things happening there in the world. One, parts are getting smaller. So miniaturization is happening in medical device and electronics and optics and photonics and lots of different industries around the world. And the challenge with miniaturization is, one, to just prototype at that scale is difficult, and using some of the either conventional technologies or additive manufacturing, 3D printing technologies are challenged once you get down to that size. But also making parts when they get that small, whether it's using molding, machining, stamping, conventional methods, become more and more difficult. And so that was really the premise behind how BMF was founded, is that miniaturization was happening in the world, and that additive manufacturing, the existing additive manufacturing tools at the time were not really suitable to create parts at that level of resolution, surface finish, accuracy, and that's really what we're all about. So we're located in multiple places around the world, and we sell a technology or a series of technologies that we often describe as micro. So some people sometimes talk about nano. We don't quite get into nano level technologies. Nano would be defined as really sub-micron, and there's some good technologies out there that do that. We call ourselves more micro. So these parts are typically, sort of millimeter in scale, upwards to centimeter in scale. But for a lot of these industries, when parts are at that scale, the tolerance requirements are pretty tight. So we're typically talking about tolerances in the plus or minus tens of microns. People looking to get features in the sort of tens of microns, holes or bosses or walls, and those were difficult to do with other technologies. So we have really three different platforms. They all work in a similar way today. We have a 2 micron series, a 10 micron series, and a 25 micron series. And when we use those numbers refer to what we call the optical resolution, which refers to the size of the pixel. So we use a DLP technology that projects down onto a vat of resin. And so let's say, for example, on a 10 micron machine, that's the diameter of the pixel is 10 microns. And then that typically translates to being able to get a feature that's somewhere on the order of sort of 5x that optical resolution. So for example, on our 10 micron machine, you could create a 50 micron hole or a 50 micron wall or boss. It's a little bit of a general rule of thumb. Things will depend a little bit on geometry, materials, and aspect ratios, and a variety of other things. But these are the machines that we sell now around the world. We have about 500 of these machines installed around the world. in the US, in Europe, in China, in Japan, in Korea, all different places across a wide range of industries. So I was going to show just a couple different slides showing just examples. And these are typically representative of what our customers are doing. The electrical connector space, which is really defined as all the different connectors that go into a lot of consumer electronics, either the consumer electronics or the industrial electronics that people are using. And one of the challenges there is that things are getting smaller, so the connectors need to get smaller. And so we have a pretty large customer base that do electrical connectors. They're doing it for prototyping, and increasingly they're also doing it for production. And the demand there, or the technical requirement there, are to meet very very high tolerances, to meet very small features, and then there's demanding material requirements. Parts need to be have in many cases have a high temperature resistance, or maybe even a flame retardant requirement. And so these are all things that we've been able to bring to our technology and serve the electrical connector market. Again, this miniaturization trend I'll keep bringing up. I often refer to this as things like our phones. Our phones aren't necessarily getting smaller. I think the world has decided that we like our phones this size or bigger, but there's so much more stuff in this phone that there was a year or two or three ago. More antennas, more sensors, more cameras, and that's really what's driving a lot of the innovation that's happening within our customers. Some other examples here. So this is we call them micro precision 3D printed electronic parts. Again, connectors. Chip sockets. It's an interesting application. So a chip socket is it's not the chip itself, but it is the testing base that's being used in a lot of the testing that's done for microchips. One of the challenges here, if you look at the part on the left side there, you can't quite see it, but there are on the order of about 2,000 holes in that part. And the way those are normally made is they're machined. And so, and those holes are very small, and the distance between the holes are very small. And it's therefore very expensive to be able to do. This is an application where 3D printing has really sort of emerged as being a winner, because our technology can do that quickly relative to conventional technologies. And increasingly the materials are going to be strong enough, temperature resistant enough, durable enough to be able to serve for those chip testing applications. I'm going to use an example here of nozzles. So this is a case study from one of our customers in Europe for spectroscopy applications. Nozzles are difficult because the hole, or the orifice that is really central to the nozzle itself, is often very small. And you want the tolerance for that hole is very tight. So this is in a lot of electronic testing, not electronic, but analytical testing applications, where you're spraying a liquid or spraying a gas, and then you're doing analysis, spectroscopy in this case. You want to try to create nozzles that, to the best of the ability of the manufacturing methods, limits the variation in what I'll call the spray or the fog or the media that's being introduced for analysis. And making those nozzles today is difficult and expensive. The smaller they get, or the smaller the hole gets, molding gets expensive, or machining gets expensive. It's a really good application for three-dimensional printing. Microfluidics. So there's an emerging world out there of using microfluidic devices primarily for drug screening, drug testing, and these devices typically, historically, have been made in a somewhat of I'll call it a 2.5D fashion, where very small channels are machined or molded, and then a plate is put over the top. That's historically, what's the way people have made microfluidic chips over the past 5 to 10 years. With 3D printing, you significantly simplify those steps, and you can start to introduce true three-dimensional geometries. And so there's a number of just examples for inspiration, whether it's a truly three-dimensional chip, the thing you see on the left, in the upper left corner and the upper right corner, or it's using our platform to make casting patterns for more of the conventional 2.5D approach. So here, again, a really good fit for additive manufacturing, where you're trying to create geometries that are complex. Those geometries are getting smaller and smaller. Those channels, typically these channels now get to be below 100 microns in diameter. And the whole point for a lot of drug testing applications is you're trying to mimic as best as possible what's happening in the human body. So this is an emerging space. The microfluidics market today is a fraction of the size of, let's say, what the electrical connector market is, but it's growing very quickly. And the more and more tools that are out there that enable drug research to be able to do these things quickly will help expand that market. Needles and needle arrays. And so there is it continues to be an emerging demand. Some of this, was accelerated or at least highlighted by COVID over the past 3 or 4 years of trying to come up with more scalable drug delivery methods. I think the world discovered through COVID that the needle and the vial, the way most drugs are administered, is hard to scale if you need to, regularly deliver drugs to billions of people around the world. So the idea of microneedles has been around for a while, but I think the need and the demand was really accelerated through COVID. And so micro 3D printing has gone a long way to really help researchers in this area think about the best methods for creating needles and needle arrays for drug delivery. It's another example of a medical device that is just a really good fit for additive manufacturing. And we have a bunch of customers actually who are doing endoscope distal tips or shells. So to explain what this is an endoscope is typically a camera that's inserted into your body for exploratory reasons. And the tip of that camera, there's often what's called a distal tip, and you'll see some of the images on the top there. So these are small. There's lots of features. There's lots of holes. There's lots of thin walls. Just like lots of surgeries around the world, they're becoming less invasive. You want them to be the recovery time for patients to be faster. The sort of comfort or discomfort that's involved with these procedures, you want to try to minimize. And so there's a push to make these endoscope shells very high precision and very small. This is a very good fit for additive manufacturing because, one, these parts are very difficult to mold because of all the features that you're trying to fit into an endoscope head. You're trying to get a camera in there and light source and water and a number of other things. Also, from a material requirement point of view, you need it to be biocompatible. You need it to be able to last long enough. This is a disposable item, so a procedure is done and then the distal tip is taken off and thrown away. So it needs to be able to hold up to the procedure, which hopefully is only 10 or 15 minutes. It needs to be biocompatible, but then it doesn't have significant material requirements that it needs to last a long time or is under a very high load. So BMF's primary business today is that we are providers of the machines and the materials and the services and the tools that allow all of our customers to develop new products, to think about going into manufacturing for micro products. But we also spend a lot of our time as a company doing our own research and developing of applications. We're the experts with the tool, and we see lots of potential ideas out there that we think can be developed further. And so as a company, we're developing some of these applications on our own as well, with our own time and effort and money. And I'll highlight two of these that we're working on. One is in the dental market. So we're actually have developed a very thin cosmetic veneer. So veneer is something that's put on the front of your tooth, either to whiten or to improve shape or to cover a chip. It's a large market around the world. One of the challenges in that market is the conventional way of making veneers is that they're milled, typically milled out of a dental zirconium material, and the best you can mill down to is between 300 and 500 microns thick. That sounds thin, but it's relatively thick, and because of that thickness, it requires invasive grinding of enamel, and nobody wants that. So enamel is not something that's regenerated in your body. Once it's gone, it's gone. Patients don't want that. Dentists don't want that. But that's the status quo of cosmetic veneers. It's the single biggest reason people don't get veneers today, is that the invasive grinding would have to take place to have these 300 to 500 micron thick veneers applied. What BMF has come up with is the ability to do a very thin cosmetic veneer, down to about 100 microns and below. We're developing this process. The material has been cleared by the US FDA, and we are building plants in both the United States and in Asia to service this market. It's an example of an end application that we think is high value and is uniquely enabled by our BMF platform. The second application on the right, it's a variation to a microfluidic device. We call it a biochip, and it's a device that is intended to help drug researchers grow tissue. One of the challenges in growing tissue is you can seed a cell plate or a slide with cells, and you want to hope you can grow tissue, but you're limited in how much tissue can actually grow with most of those constructs. So we have some ideas around a novel tissue growth platform that we believe much better replicates what's happening in your body. And so we built a chip, and you can see some of these sort of the matrix there that's intended to be representative of capillaries in your body. So those small tubes you see in the matrix are on the order of 80 microns in OD. They actually have small holes in them to represent the mass transport of, or to enable the mass transport of nutrients in and waste out. And we believe this type of chip architecture will be the future in terms of being able to grow novel tissue and aid in drug screening and drug development. And so that's a little bit of an overview of who we are at BMF. Maybe that's some inspiration for people about some of your applications. And then I'm going to turn this over to Peter, and Peter will walk through our next machine that we recently announced that we think brings a lot of interesting capability and expands the capability from our current set of technologies.
All right, thanks, John. Yeah. All right, so now that we've established where BMF is today, let's take a look at the next generation of machine. So the D1025, this is the first printer in BMF's hybrid printing series. So what you'll be able to do is have dual resolution in both 10 micron and 25 micron. This will provide a solution for micro scale and ultra high resolution applications, and you'll be able to print the very best high quality parts while optimizing speed and ease of use. This machine will address challenges related to detailed processing of complex structural parts. It bridges the connection between design and manufacturing. So when you're designing a part that you can't manufacture any other way, the D1025 will help with that. And it's production ready for high precision and high accuracy parts. So with that, let's take a look at some of the specifications. As mentioned, this combines the optical resolution of two of our different machines of 10 micron and 25 micron. The printing area when you're printing a single projection of 10 micron resolution is 27.16 by 16 by 50. When doing a single projection of 25 micron, that's 67.9 by 40 by 50 millimeters. And then when doing a stitch, the maximum possible print area, that's 100 by 100 by 50 millimeters. We recommend a layer thickness of 10 to 50 micron, and we use a 405 nanometer UV LED light source to cure resin. And we are printing with photosensitive resin. How do we do that? We use a technology called pulse. So pulse technology basically is a vat polymerization process. You can see in this image over here, it's a top-down UV projection that cures material in a heated resin tank. On top of that resin tank is a membrane to give the projector basically a constant focal plane. The projector stays stationary, but the stage, the material vat moves in the XY to stitch together projection zones. So if your part or your build is larger than one single projection, then you'll be able to stitch together multiple zones. Underneath the membrane is a platform, and that drops downwards into the vat in the Z direction. And then parts build on top of the platform as it drops into the material vat. On top of that, there is a roller that runs across the top surface of the membrane to level out the resin in between each of the layers. And there's a scraper underneath to help remove air bubbles. And there is a laser displacement sensor used for precise calibration. So this pulse technology is how pretty much all of our current systems perform. On the D1025, what we'll have is automatic switching between 10 and 25 micron resolution projectors. So this video should show you when we look into the printer. You can see here the machine is projecting the larger 25 micron images and then switches over to the smaller 10 micron images. And that's being done right here on the same layer. All right, so with the switching, there's 3 printing modes available. You can do 10 micron only, or you can do 25 micron only, up to you. Or you can do a hybrid mode with dual resolution. So manually, what you can do is you can specify between 10 and 25 micron pixel resolution in between each layer. So that means each layer will have either 10 or 25 micron resolution. You just enter that into your parameters. Otherwise, you can do automatic hybrid mode, which is what you just saw, where the system will analyze the sliced images and automatically switch between 10 and 25 micron resolution within a single layer as needed. So you'll have seamless switching of the lenses based on the size of the part or feature being printed. So you saw how it switched between the 25 micron lens and the 10 micron lens. And what you'll do is you'll just slice as if it was a 10 micron resolution print. So with the 2 different micron resolutions, you have 2 different DLP chips to support those resolutions. They're both going to be 2716 by 1600 pixels. When you're using the 10 micron resolution, that equates to 27.16 by 16 for each individual single projection. And that means there's going to be 4 by 7 stitch zones on a 100 by 100 millimeter platform. And then when you're doing a 25 micron resolution, that's 67.9 by 40 millimeters. So that's 2 by 3 stitch zones. So what does that mean? Well, that means you're going to have faster print times while you're still producing high quality precision parts. So the larger projection zones, when compared to existing BMF printers, you'll be able to fit more parts into that one zone. So for example, the 240, one of our most popular machines, that uses a smaller 1920 by 1080 projection. And that's 6 by 10 zones when compared to 4 by 7 here. So what that means is your per part print time will be faster when printing larger quantity. You have less stitch zones to stitch together. And then you can use just a higher resolution on on the features that require it. So let's say, you know, small features, small channels, needles, things like that. And then all the other areas can print at the lower resolution, the lower 25 micron resolution, which has even a larger print zone, and that'll speed up your total build time. All right, so some example applications here. You can do a micro needle array with a base. I think there's a video here that shows that you can print the base at 25 micron resolution and then the tips of those micro needles at 10 micron resolution. So you don't have to waste any time printing that base with a higher resolution. You can just go and automatically switch to that 25 micron resolution projector. On this microchip socket, John talked about this earlier, the smaller diameter holes can be printed at the 10 micron resolution, while the surrounding areas around those holes can be printed with a 25 micron resolution. Same thing with this open channel casting pattern. So the channels at the top can be printed at 10 micron resolution, while the areas surrounding it and the base underneath it, those can be printed at 25 micron resolution. So you're still getting high quality parts, but with the ability to switch between a resolution, you'll have much faster prints. So on top of the faster prints and switching between two different resolutions, we also added some features to help with ease of use and overall printing process. So for example, we have now automatic calibration. So you can quickly and easily calibrate the level of the platform, membrane, and roller with just the press of a button in the software to make laser measurements. And then the software will use motors to automatically adjust the level. So if you're familiar with BMF printers already, the platform and membrane will be leveled automatically to plus or minus 5 microns in the 3 corners, and the roller will be leveled to 4 to 8 micron compression. The benefits of this is ease of use, and less training is going to be required. So like if we go and train a certain person and that person takes vacation or something like that, a different user can easily pick up and just follow, clicking a couple buttons to automatically calibrate, which we found was the biggest roadblock in setting up the printers. This also decreases printer turnover time, which then increases printer uptime. So you can calibrate in seconds, if it's already in relative calibration, or in minutes. It also eliminates variability, resulting in more successful builds. So if one person calibrates and the platform is out of level, in a certain way, and then another person calibrates a certain way, that just takes away the variability. So both people, no matter who is setting up the machine, it will be the same calibration. And of course, you're still able to manually level via the software if desired. There's just no physical screws to turn, but you'll be able to type in the software to turn the screw a certain way to manually calibrate it. For example, if you want to get closer than 5 microns or whatever. And this video here on the right hand side will show you the platform is automatic leveling. And then over here, the membrane will automatically level. And then the roller. So that on existing machines, these 3 procedures can take some time, especially on a non-trained person. But with this automatic calibration, we really improve the ease of use and increase the uptime. All right, we also have automatic printing parameters. So now we've already implemented this on our other systems, but the D1025 will continue to allow users to automatically set parameter settings for roller frequency and resin leveling delay. So what this does is the software analyzes the printing area of the slice images to determine the printing parameters based on the density of parts. So we can support a wide range of material viscosity values, and then depending on the viscosity, the parameters are adjusted accordingly. And then you can still do full manual control if you want, but this is just another thing that allows the user just to have kind of an easy experience with setting up your printer. We'll also have automatic resin adjustments. So you can automatically and accurately add or remove resin to ensure that the correct amount of resin is in the vat. So you see in this picture here, there's an onboard resin reservoir for spare resin. And basically, you're not going to need any pipettes or syringes or anything like that to manually add or remove resin after you've leveled the membrane. The system will automatically take readings on the membrane and determine, if the center of the membrane is low, which means there's not enough resin, this resin will automatically get added. And then if there's too much resin, resin can be removed and put back into the reservoir. You'll be able to do this with materials with a viscosity of up to about 500 centipoise. You also have overflow protection so that you don't accidentally add too much resin. And here is another feature that helps reduce turnover time and ensure build success. All right, we also have a magnetic platform. So the platform, as you see here, is an easy to install magnetic platform. You'll have a platform arm that stays installed in the printer, and then the platform is attached on top of the arm via magnets. So what you do is you use a fork to remove the magnetic platform. And because the platform arm is never removed from the printer, it should stay level. And then you can just quickly add another magnetic platform on top of that arm. Once, you can have multiple platforms, so you just put the new platform on once you're ready. So in this case, you'll be ready for automation in the future. There's less calibration needed when swapping out the platform because the arm stays stationary. And if you do need to calibrate for whatever reason, you can use that automatic leveling, which will get you back in level within, I would say, a couple of seconds. So this is ideal for quicker production turnaround time. And this video here is going to show you the fork going into the platform, taking it off of the magnetic arm, and that's it. We also have a side shifting membrane. So the membrane also stays installed in between builds, and there's no need to remove or reinstall or re-level in between builds. And if you do need to level for whatever reason, automatic leveling. And then on top of the membrane, the roller is installed, and it remains installed in between builds as well. So again, this increases uptime and supports a production scenario. You can just leave everything in there, take the platform out, put a new platform in, hit a couple buttons, and then you're ready to print once again. All right, so to summarize, the D1025, you will have the highest part quality with the ability for hybrid resolution of 10 and 25 micron. You'll have faster build times because you can use the lower resolution when the higher resolution is not needed. You have larger projection zones when compared to existing machines. So that means you can fit more parts into one single projection. You have faster stitching because you have less zones to stitch together if your part is more than one projection zone. You'll have easier and faster setup times because of automatic leveling, automatic parameters, and automatic resin adjustment. You'll have higher success rate because your calibration will be consistent and automatic, and your production and automation ready. All right, so with that, we will open this up to questions. You just want to go ahead and type in your questions into the Q&A and not the chat. And we'll just go down this list here. What materials are currently available? So BMF have our own line of materials. They're on our website, you can bmf3d.com. We have things like biocompatible materials. We have high temperature materials, materials for prototypes, materials for end use parts. So based on your application, we likely have material for you, but at the same time, we're also open materials. So as long as a third-party material can cure at 405 nanometer wavelength, then it's a possibility to print on our machines. And we do have partnerships with different companies to qualify third-party materials on our machines. So for example, we have ESD material, we have flame retardant material, all third-party that are qualified on our machines. All right. Okay, so post-processing. Post-processing is pretty simple. So once your build completes, you just take your platform out of the printer, and what you'll do is you'll wash your parts off with a cleaning solution. We use IPA. A lot of our customers just use off-the-shelf foam wash. And, you have a clean wash and then a dirty wash just to get all the excess resin residue off. And then after that, once the parts are clean and free of resin, then you just take those parts and do a post-cure. Now, depending on the material, there might be different post-cure requirements, but typically for the material that comes with the printer, HTL, that is just in the form cure. You can just do that for, depending on the properties that you want, you can either do a range of like 5 minutes or 3 hours or something like that, depending on the properties that you want. So all you need to do is wash and post cure. Okay. How quickly can resins be changed? So what I would recommend if you want to change resins is just take out the entire material vat and leave the resin in the vat, and then just put a brand new vat in there with another material. I think that's probably the easiest way. And the vat is just held on the 1025. It's just held on by 2 screws, so you can just take the entire vat out, which includes the membrane and the roller, and then put a new one in, and that can take just a couple minutes. Otherwise, if you don't have a second vat, then you just have to clean everything out. But I think the easiest way would be a second vat. All right. Next question is regarding supports and how easy are they removed and what tools do you need? Can they be snapped off, or does each one need to be snipped? It depends on the material. It depends on the geometry and the way you design the supports. So the way that I prefer to design supports myself is we'll have a bunch of supports, and then underneath the supports will be like a base, like a raft of some sort. So then you can just take all the supports off at once. So then you don't have to individually take off each support. But that's up to you. We have some templates in our slicing software that can just help you generate supports, and then based on your geometry, you can modify the supports as needed. But you don't really need many tools, tweezers, or a lot of times you can just do it by hand. So it really depends on geometry. All right. Next question is about projection zones. Are they visible during layouts, and will parts print faster if kept to one projection zone when possible? To answer the second part of that question, yes. If you're concerned about print times, then if you're able to put your parts into one single projection zone, then it'll be faster, because then you don't have to stitch together multiple zones. And with the larger print zone, you'll be able to put more parts in there as well as larger parts in there. And then the zones, if you do end up stitching multiple zones together, there is a visible stitch line on the part, but in the software, what you can do is you can adjust the fade and the overlap. So there are ways to reduce the visible stitch line. And then if you're asking about when you're laying them out in the slicer, then we also have overlays in the slicer where you can see where the zones are. So you can avoid the stitch lines as well. All right. Next question is about resin, the automatic resin feature. Yes, this eliminates the need to use a pipette. So if you're a current 240 customer, then you'll know that, once you level your membrane, you'll use a pipette to add or remove resin so that the center of your membrane matches the level of your corners. The automatic resin feature here seeks to eliminate that. So basically, in the software, you'll just press a button, and there's a laser, so it reads the level of the resin, and then it will add or remove as necessary. You just want to make sure that it's the same resin in the reservoir as what's in the vat. So if you switch the material out in the vat, you just need to clean that reservoir out as well. Do you want to answer this? All right, just going through these questions here. How do we verify dimensions of our prints are to the required specifications? So we also run a sort of like a service bureau here in our facility. And so for every part that we print, every benchmark that we print for, potential customers, things like that, we measure each of those with just like a Keon's microscope. And if there's critical dimensions, then we, make sure that we focus on those critical dimensions. But otherwise, we put all of our parts under a microscope and just measure to make sure that they're under the required specifications.
Yeah, and that's just to expand on that. I think one of the questions a little bit broader. How do people verify dimensions? Peter explained how we do it here, but I think most of our customers have inspection tools, whether they're microscopes or laser scanners. Very often these parts are smaller than what a set of calipers can effectively measure. And so, people are typically using, sort of optical or laser scanning technology if it's really important to them in terms of verifying dimensions.
All right. Next question is about the slicer software. So you theoretically can use any slicer you want as long as it exports 8-bit PNG black and white images that can match the resolution of the printer. BMF has partnerships, and one of those partnerships is with Voxel Dance. So that would be typically included in your quotes. And, we work with Voxel Dance and, give them feedback on, feature enhancements and bugs and things like that. So that we work closely with them to make sure that that slicer is compatible with our printers.
Yeah. Maybe I'll address there's a question here. Is a 1025 okay for university research lab, or is a 240 better, since it has similar features, only being slower? So on one hand, yeah, I mean, that's if there's less of a concern about throughput and productivity and really optimizing or balancing precision with throughput, you could certainly make an argument that a 240, is sufficient. But at the same time, that the 1025 brings a sort of a level of automation and convenience that is sort of the next step up in terms of the evolution of our technology, and having trained users is important, whether you're in an industrial environment, but also in a university environment where you might be cycling out students on a pretty regular basis. So I think the 1025 also offers an ease of use bump compared to the 240 that I would expect would be attractive in a university environment.
There's a question about layer thicknesses. is the layer thickness in one hybrid mode constant over the entire print job, or is there a possibility that layers with a 25 micron resolution can also have thicker Z layers? The answer to that is you can adjust the Z layers on each individual image however you want. So we were talking about slices earlier. Within voxel dance, there's something called adaptive slicing, where you can slice your part so that certain areas have thicker layer heights. So for example, we showed a micro-needle array earlier with a thick base. So that thick base can be both printed in the 25 micron resolution projector, but also have thicker Z height. So that layer height can be 40 micron, for example. When you get to the needles, then you can switch to the 10 micron resolution projector, and those can be at 10 micron layer heights. So you can switch between as you wish.
Also, to point there, variable layer height is a capability of all of our machines today. So that's not unique to the 1025, because people can make choices about the level of resolution in the Z, mainly in the Z now. If you're varying layers, we call that variable layer thickness, and it actually can be very powerful tool in terms of being able to make parts and really sort of zone in on fine features in different parts of the geometry. I guess my point there is the ability to do different Z heights through the build that exists across all of our platforms today.
All right. There's a question on the smallest blind hole diameter that we can print while still being able to clean out the uncured resin. The answer to this is that it depends. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on the geometry. So like how deep is that blind hole? What's the aspect ratio? What material you're using, things like that. I would say for, just a typical blind hole, you can probably do like 2.5 of the pixel resolution. So maybe like 25 micron or so, if you're using 10 micron pixel resolution.
And there's some best practices that we can share with our customers in terms of the cleaning solutions, or do you do it under vacuum?
Yeah.
Or it's really going to depend on the tools that you might have in your lab, or the parts that you're making. But we've learned over the years a bunch of techniques that work well, because for microfluidics, this is the challenge with microfluidics. You're printing a part, and it may look beautiful, but you need to be able to get the resin out and be able to clear that out. And using different washing materials and different things like a vacuum chamber can help a lot. Yeah, there's some questions about plating or metallizing connectors or other parts for that matter. So electroplating or putting coatings, I'll talk about this more broadly. We have a lot of customers who use our parts and then put coatings on them. Now, those coatings might be to make them more hydrophobic or hydrophilic, or to make them more chemical resistant, or to actually metallize, to actually plate. So we have a number of whole set of procedures to be able to do plating. I think that the question here is, how do we selectively metallize? The plating vendors, the partners that we use, are pretty skilled at being able to mask areas that you don't want to plate versus areas you do want to plate. So we've had a lot of success in being able to do plating for electrical connectors or for wear resistance. Also, one of the added benefits that you get with plating very small parts is that you're getting that functional performance that you're looking for with plating, but you're also getting strength. So if you got a large part, you got a part the size of a basketball, and you plate that, the amount of plating versus the volume of the part is actually very, very small. But when you have a very small electrical connector, what you may have is that the plating makes up a reasonable percentage now of the volume of the part, and therefore it's just a lot stronger. And so we have a number of customers who are using a plating technique for parts that are normally machined out of metal. So you might have a complex metal part that has to be machined out of metal. An alternative is printing it using a resin and then plating it. And for lots of applications that can be faster, less expensive, and more functional.
What was that?
The other ones over there that you have.
Oh, yeah. So we had some other questions that came in.
Yeah, we've got, we can maybe do a couple more questions. We've got a few more minutes left in the webinar.
All right. Question is, can we use all of BMF materials on the D1025? Yes, all the resins are currently compatible on the D1025. So if you use it on the S240, you can use it on the D1025. Ceramics is theoretically possible as well, but just not yet developed. And then how fast is the D1025 compared to the S240 or the S350? The overall time for a build will depend on a bunch of factors like the model size, density, viscosity of material, things like that. But as I mentioned, because the printing zone of the D1025 is larger, you'll basically be able to fit more parts in, so it's the time per part will be less. And then if you have a larger part that spans across multiple projection zones, or you have like a full build or something like that, then you have less zones to stitch together, and then that will make your build faster as well. And we're also not even considering the setup time. So with the D1025, you have the automatic leveling, you have the automatic resin control, and all those other ease of use improvements. So the overall time is just going to be much faster, and it's hard to quantify, but we're very sure that you'll have faster parts.
Okay, well, why don't we wrap it up? So thanks for listening. Certainly, we're excited about this new product. And if you're interested in more information, certainly go to our website at BMF3D.com. There's lots of content there. There's lots of examples. There's lots of specs. There's lots of descriptions on materials. And please reach out to our sales team. It's a very common practice that if people are serious about investing in the technology, they'll want samples. You're going to want your sample, I expect. And we recognize that's a normal part of the process. So please send things. Please challenge us, and we look forward to talking to many of you in the future. Thank you.